This is Stories of Impact, the art and science of human flourishing. In every episode, we travel the world to explore intersections of science and spirituality. I'm your host, writer Tavia Gilbert, and along with journalist Richard Sergey, every first and third Tuesday, we look through a new lens at old traditions, hear from new generations as they dream up innovative solutions, and learn new ways to make sense of modern life. Today's episode is full of beauty, hope, healing, community, and connection. In fact, it might be one of the most feel-good, good news stories we've ever gotten to tell. Here's an inspiring place to begin.
The great developmental psychologist Yuri Bronfenbrenner once said, every child needs at least one adult in their life who cares irrationally for them, no matter what. It doesn't mean they approve everything the child does, but they're always on the kid's side.
Meet Dr. Richard Lerner, who for decades has studied child and adolescent development all over the world. He's the director of the Institute for Applied Research and Youth Development, professor in the Elliott Pearson Department of Child Study and Human Development, and Bergstrom Chair in Applied Developmental Science, all at Tufts University. And like many great teachers, he can tell you to look for people who care about kids like that in school. In fact, in one school in particular, a place called Thanda.
Thanda is full of people who have that indefatigable commitment to loving each child, to showing each child that they're known and loved, that they matter, that who they are as a person matters. And that's tremendously transformative in a young person's life.
Along with Dr. Lerner, Dr. Elizabeth Dowling is studying Thanda, a school in rural South Africa run by some of the perhaps most irrationally caring educators on the planet. Dr. Dowling, who you might remember from an earlier episode with Rwandan peacemaker Freddie Matongwa, is Tufts University Deputy Director of the Institute for Applied Research and Youth Development. Dr. Dowling and Dr. Lerner have been immersed in a several-year collaborative study with educators at Thanda, one of the most thriving and successful schools they've ever encountered. What Thanda does differently starts with its environment, says Dr. Dowling.
They've created a place that is just visually appealing to kids. So they have these buildings that are all environmentally sustainable. One building is a green building, the next one's purple, and the next one's orange. And they have book characters that are painted inside of these buildings. They're places that attract kids where kids want to come and feel safe. A full library with some of the best kids' books you've ever seen are in this place. And they have musicians and dancers who come in. They have a gardening program for the kids. They have health experts who come and talk to their teenagers. They realized that a lot of the boys in the community, they weren't sure about it. They created a skateboarding park. So to get into Thanda, you have to walk over the skateboarding park where there's 15 to 20 kids just skateboarding past you at all times. So it's like you're welcomed in right away to joyousness and movement. The visualness and the joy and the sounds that come out of Thanda is different than almost any youth program I've ever been in. So it really is a comprehensive program, and it is a joyful place.
South Africa has a history of successes, including dismantling its apartheid system, sustaining its democracy and its progressive constitution, and offering increasing economic freedom to women. But it suffers from persistent inequality, poverty, unemployment, and historical violence. Despite operating within such a complex and fraught culture and history, though, Dr. Lerner says Thanda is thriving because its educators are
successful in transforming the lives of young people who were so beset with challenges emotionally, physically, and socioeconomically.
How does Thanda accomplish this?
From my first acquaintance, what surprised me the most was the passion that surrounded everything they did. There's just a sense of love in the place. Love permeates the place. They love doing their work. They love the children, and the children love them back. To see how different it was from any other program I had encountered by that enthusiasm for loving and knowing every child. I describe it as in the wholeness of their individuality. They know the kid, they love the kid. The kid is given the sense that I mean something to people, and that's a great gift.
Thanda's mission isn't just to teach children, but to serve rural South African households and neighborhoods, and to engage with community members from infants through elderly adults. When he and Dr. Dowling began to study Thanda, Dr. Lerner says that he found Thanda educators uniquely offered
unconditional support, holistic support, continuous support, a engagement with the family and the community to create continuity between what was going on in Thanda and what was happening in their homes and neighborhoods. That was unique to me, to be so positive, so enthusiastic, so committed.
Thanda is exemplary, Dr. Dowling says, so she partnered with Dr. Lerner in order to explore a somewhat unusual question.
What goes right in the lives of the world's most vulnerable kids who are growing up in the most challenging of circumstances?
Thanda is the Zulu word for love, says Dr. Dowling. And I love that these researchers have teamed up to study not what goes wrong, but what goes right in a school focused on healthy youth development. To understand where Thanda goes right, we have to start with its school mission, which is to promote thriving and flourishing in young people by instilling in them character virtues such as generosity, gratitude, and love. Thanda uniquely offers a curriculum designed around such character virtues, because it's those virtues that will help its students and its multi-generational community thrive, says Dr. Lerner.
The tagline for our lab is we want to discover what goes right in the lives of young people. And Thanda was a place of joy and hope in really one of the poorest and most marginalized places, even within South Africa. It was like an oasis in a desert. And I just had traveled the world looking at programs all over the majority world. And I had not encountered a place that was so enthusiastic about their mission and passion for really transforming lives in this positive way. I've seen extraordinary poverty, but whereas I'd always seen people who were dedicated to changing the lives of the kids in those conditions, I had never seen such thorough positivity, such a can-do attitude, such hopefulness, and such genuine humility on the part of the practitioners to learn from the community and empower them through that learning.
Such character virtues are key to Thanda's beliefs about what comprises a flourishing, thriving young person.
A moral human being is a person who contributes to self by contributing to others. Think of the African proverb Ubuntu. I am because you are is one way of translating that. That mutually beneficial, mutually positive relationship, dynamic that is mutually affecting one another, relation between self and other. That is why character is essential for personal and societal well-being. When people function in a way that is with and for others, that serves not the egotistic self, but a self in community, that is the ingredient for human thriving. It's the story of our biological evolution as well. We couldn't have survived because we don't have sharp teeth and claws. We couldn't have survived as a species. We're born not able to stand up and walk right away. We're the slowest developing of all mammalian species. So we always needed those developmentally nurturant relationships across time and place to survive as a species and to flourish as individuals. And character gives you that beacon to exist with and for others in mutually beneficial ways. So it's the secret sauce, if you will, of flourishing.
Thanda has embraced character as central to its focus not just on academic achievement, but in the achievement of Thanda's kids becoming healthy and whole adults. Thanda's aim is to educate its children in a way that will prepare them to flourish as future parents, neighbors, citizens, and the leaders of tomorrow, always guided by its North Star mission of helping kids develop their character. Dr. Dowling says,
what we saw in Thanda was an organization that was really dedicated to the community. Everybody who works at Thanda, other than the founders, either live in the community now or grew up in the community. So they have invested in training the people who have lived there. So they really know the kids. They have different aspects of their program. So they have an early childhood education program for the little kids. They have an after school program for the older kids. So starting, I think, at age 6, going through high school or secondary school. They have a girls empowerment program and a boys empowerment program and a baby program. The curriculum is developed differently for each of those, but the core across all of them is an investment in promoting character virtues in the lives of their kids. That is a huge part of their success. The programming that they have co-created with the community is based in kind of the history and the culture of the tribes of that area. So they have a curriculum that includes generosity, curiosity, a sense of belonging, but it is created with the community in mind. So as an example, they went and studied the history of beads for the different tribes, created clothing around it. Everything is really centered in the history of the place they exist in. It's beautiful.
because Thanda is designed to embrace and serve its community, not just its kids, it answers the needs of people in the neighborhoods around them.
So Thanda deeply understands that it takes a village. They noticed that mothers weren't speaking to each other. They could see each other, their houses, you could see each other, but those mothers that had new babies weren't speaking to each other because they didn't know that they could reach out and be partners and friends. They saw that it needed to happen. They saw that young people needed mentors and somebody they could talk to about their health or their questions about relationships. And so Thanda went to them and created a baby program. Thanda understands that it takes a village. The other idea that they are very committed to is giving young people a sense of hope, because what they were finding when they first got to the area was that a deep sense of despondency with the parents, and that a lot of the kids were being raised by grandparents. And so they wanted to bring back this joy and hope into the community. They thought a good way to do that is to truly know the community, the history, the culture, and create these curriculum across these different program areas and ages of kids that are committed to things like generosity, creativity, and a sense of belonging within the community. That's how they created their curriculum. They also engaged the elders of the community to say, how could we enrich something that we want to do for the boys in our community? They have things like movie nights where it's just the men from Thanda who spend time with the boys to talk about positive gender identity and things like that.
Strengthening relationships like this offers Thanda's kids the opportunity to choose a future that's right for them, one that could include staying rooted at home for a lifetime.
They understand that thriving and flourishing in their community isn't necessarily that all the kids leave to go to Johannesburg, which in many programs, that's what happens is kids get these skills and then they might leave town. That is not really their goal. Their goal is for kids to develop the skills so they can start their own business and have a healthy family. So their expectations are not to create that, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be an astronaut, the kids say it in the beginning. But they're so clued into the community. They know not only what resilience is in terms of how do we allow kids to overcome the challenges in their homes or with their own health, but also what is a realistic flourishing for these kids where they can stay in the community that they know and where they have a huge village of support around them to thrive within that community, trying to develop in kids not only a sense of who they are, but also a sense of how they can be a part of this functioning, successful, thriving community.
The researchers wanted to objectively measure the impact of Thanda's educational strategy. Dr. Lerner says,
what we wanted to do was to identify in Thanda why kids were doing well or not with their family, with their school, with their friendships, with the physical ecology of the place. What we could do to align everything in that kid's life in ways that would put them on a positive pathway.
So what was their theory? And how did they conduct the research?
theory of change was you could align the resources that exist to foster flourishing in young people with the identified strengths that young people had or were developing. Then those kids would develop in positive ways, show growth in character, show growth in overall flourishing or thriving, and lead healthier lives.
Dr. Dowling adds,
we're looking at individual changes within an individual person to see how kids are developing across time.
and what did their study uncover about Thanda's community and heart-centered curriculum and culture?
They have been successful, so we do see that kids are growing in things like well-being. We also see the Thanda kids are doing well on things like generosity, curiosity, sense of belonging. The kids at Thanda really feel a sense of belonging. They feel a sense of trust. They feel where they can actually express themselves and ask questions, which isn't common for other kids in their community. So the evidence is showing that they are being successful, but also if you walk onto the Thanda campus, you will also feel it.
Dr. Lerner adds that by the end of the study,
we saw that the system of empowerment, of enhancing agency, of giving people the sense that they're known and loved really matters, especially in adolescence. We saw that kids in Thanda across time profited from all of the good things that Thanda had to offer. That's what we saw, that these kids, because they knew they were loved, because it was a place of joy and hope, stayed with it and did the hard work of building agency and vision for their futures. And eventually they thrived. They flourished.
Dr. Dowling says that one thing she learned from the study was the importance of nurturing relationships. Though she and Dr. Lerner spent time developing trust with the Thanda educators, she says she wishes they'd invested even more into the relationship.
We go to Thanda, we spend a week there, we get to know the community, the kids, the parents, the caregivers, the practitioners. We talk about the different things we want to learn about, such as generosity, creativity, sense of belonging, what that means for their community. We create a survey, go back and forth, translate it, back translate it. We spend a ton of time on it. What surprised me most is that we needed more time. We needed more time to develop a sense of trust, even though our relationship was very good and strong, probably one of the best I've ever worked with between the Tufts team and the Thanda team. We needed more time for the Thanda team to feel empowered to say, we know you're the researchers, but we're not sure that's the best way of asking that question, or we're not so sure a survey is the best way to do this. The survey might be too long. So we needed more time to make sure that we really understood and trusted each other so that could have happened. And I think what surprised me was that we talk about humility and how important it is, and we operate that way. But I was still surprised that we didn't know that we needed more of that. We thought we were doing a great job at it, but we still need more. What really needs to happen is more empowerment of the practitioners or the majority world partners when you have a research practitioner partnership, so that the voices of the people who are closest to the kids, including the kids themselves, can really come out in an honest, free, open way.
Does the research team think that the Thanda program is scalable beyond South Africa? Could they see this happening in other places?
You can't walk into the same river twice. You can't take a program that fits KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa, and put it into Detroit, or put it into Manila, or put it into Croatia. Since every kid is different, every community is different. So you just can't pick up. When you've built a program around a specific community, that program can't just be transplanted. That's my firm belief. But what can be generalized is the principles by which you built that place. That's what can be exported. That's what can be scaled. You have to build it anew every place you go. But the principles of building, the community empowerment, the humility, the genuine respect of researchers and practitioners for each other's knowledge and strengths, those are ideas that can be scaled. So there is no one single silver bullet, but there are hundreds of silver bullets that you have to pay attention to.
Dr. Lerner is passionate about this research being disruptive, transformative, and galvanizing.
Find the culturally appropriate way to give a kid a sense that they can be a responsible adult in your cultural setting. That's what's exportable. Does that make things harder? Of course it does. But the fact of the matter is that people have been doing it the wrong way for decades. They have been thinking you could find something among white middle class Protestants from the Midwest that indicated intelligence. And then you just use that model of intelligence around the world. And that has disenfranchised literally millions of people because of the arrogance of white middle class men, mostly, in defining what intelligence was universally. You can't do it. It doesn't work that way. That's not how humanity is set up. So we need to find ways to use our principles in culturally specific, humble ways to make a genuine, authentic difference in every spot in the world. And unless we do that, especially at this point in time in the history of the world, we're going to lose a lot of good people from ever having whole and satisfactory lives.
It may not be traditionally scalable, but Thanda holds the key.
If you can understand the principles through which they succeeded, then you can create a template that other people can adapt.
Dr. Dowling closes with equal reverence, respect, and passion for spreading the ideas of the school community around Thanda, Zulu word for love. She thinks Thanda is the model to follow.
I think they could be a learning lab for other organizations across Africa where people do come to learn from them. I do think the secret sauce might be very specific to Thanda, but it is the design and the understanding and their approach, which I think can be scaled. I think they could be true leaders in teaching others how to really develop something that's beautiful and effective.
We hope you'll come back in 2 weeks for another new episode. In the meantime, please share the Stories of Impact podcast with someone you think would love it. And we'd love to hear from you. You can get in touch at storiesofimpact.org. This has been the Stories of Impact podcast with an interview by Richard Sergey. Written and produced by Tavia Gilbert for Talkbox Productions. Music by Alexander Filipiak. Mix and master by Kayla Elrod. Executive producer Michelle Cobb. The Stories of Impact podcast is generously supported by Templeton World Charity Foundation.